Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Let's Get Wicked podcast, where we talk about nothing but the tabletop game Villainous. I have to get used to saying that now. And today we have a very wonderful show packed with a very interesting topic. I am joined by one of my normal co-hosts here, Headmaster Ditto. Ditto, how are you today?
I'm doing okay, all things considered.
Yeah. All right. So we're recording the show on the day of the United States release of Perfectly Wretched. So everyone is now jumping into the set, getting excited. Currently, as Ditto told us before the show started, that he is eagerly awaiting his copy in the mail.
It's so close I can almost feel it.
I know. I'm excited for you to finally get your hands on it. I can't wait to talk about it with you more. But we're not just joined by our friend Ditto. We're also joined by a new face on the show. Not new to the Discord channel for our Villainous Discord, our friend Failure Factory. Hello, friend.
Hello, Jonesy. Hello, Ditto. Thanks for having me.
It's very honored to have you on the show. Because obviously, for you folks that don't know, Failure Factory is basically the creator of the Disney Villainous custom generator.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So
Right.
That's what we're going to actually talk about today. Our big topic today is talking about making customs. One of the things that our community has kind of bonded together on is making different customs for different Disney villain characters, regardless if we don't know if they're going in or not into the game. But our friend Failure Factory right here is actually working on this generator for a while. And once I kind of got into the game, I heard about it, and then I was really pleased to see how many people have actually taken up the time to actually go make customs, including our friend Ditto over here. So, Failure Factory, I just want to ask you this question just to kind of start the show off. What was it? What made you want to make the generator?
Right. So the thing is, I work as a developer for games and stuff like programming. But I've also dabbled in board game design. I've done a lot of custom Dominion fan cards in the past, which is probably in the Dominion forum where Vero the Great knows me from. And one thing that you notice when you do like board games and stuff, and you try to set up the cards and you create one GIMP template for each card, then you realize you have to change the font or something, and you don't want to go through 80 GIMP templates or something every time you do that. So it becomes really annoying, and I figured there should be something better for that. And at the time where I had this sport, I was beginning to get intensely into Disney Villainous, and so it became the first game for me to do this actual stress test. Could I make a good generator for this game? Would it work? Would it be able to depict all the things that you would need for the game to work? And sharing it was actually just, I didn't go into it wanting to share it, but I felt, yeah, why not? And I'm actually very surprised and humbled by the fact that there are actually now people who use the generator for their stuff. I didn't expect that, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the fact that, I am not a huge person on customs. I don't usually make my own stuff, but I really like seeing what other people create and like the process that they go through creating their own customs, because I think it's like you have to kind of jump into the developer's heads a little bit. And even though you aren't actually sitting on the cutting room floor making it, it's cool to see how the community has kind of come together and like figured stuff out. And I also know that they've like suggested stuff to you about like what you also could be added to the generator, and if you've actually been super awesome about adding stuff. So I have to give you props, because as a developer myself, I know how long that stuff takes to make. And that is no small feat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there have been things that have been coming up organically, like when I started with my first own custom, the Horned King. I realized I needed to be able to have a card that had both an activate symbol and something you could activate, and something that happened when you played it, and I introduced that. And then Ditto had Oogie Boogie, who had this different color scheme, and then I realized, maybe people would want to change the main color of the text, and so on. And then another good friend, Rocky Will, who's also in the Discord, had Dr. Heinz Duvenschmitz, and he needed a new symbol beyond the others, like Vanquish and Play a Card, and so on. And so I added support for that, and it's just growing organically, and I just like it to be as flexible as it can. Yeah. It's
I have to appreciate the fact that, as we are now branching off into different franchises in Villainous, it's nice to know that even if Disney side of things goes away, we still have this way for our entire community to still make characters and grow that spectrum of that side of Villainous. Because I know from back in the day, some of you folks might have played this little game called Star Wars Epic Duels. I don't know if anyone has here.
I didn't.
But
I didn't.
What was it? But it was a game that was in like 2003. It was basically made for like the clone. Was it Attack of the Clones when it came out? And it was supposed to be just kind of like the shovelware game that just came out with Star Wars name on it, but it actually ended up getting a huge cult following because it actually was very well designed. And it never got any sequels or expansion, because this was before the time where like expansions were even a thing. So I remember when I actually finally got my hands on the game, like going online, finding the community, and the community was actually generating their own customs. So I ended up getting a custom of General Grievous and stuff. That was really cool because General Grievous is like one of my favorite characters. And
awesome.
Yeah, no, it was super cool, and I'm really glad that I'm actually seeing this type of scene come out from this community. And it's honestly thanks a lot to what you put together. And it's super nice too that it's relatively easy to throw in a tabletop simulator. So as long as you got tabletop simulator, you just take the generator and it's ready to go. It's super sweet.
Well, it's not trivial. There are some steps.
There are some steps.
Yeah. There's a little more overhead to it. It doesn't throw you out a tabletop simulator ready sheet, but obviously it could. Like, nothing is perfect. Everything can be improved. Yeah. But tabletop simulator definitely was part of the thing I taught. Tabletop simulator was something that was important for me in this regard. But as I said, it doesn't throw you out a sheet.
Yeah. I want to kind of jump in and talk about your folks, Ditto and Failure Factory's customs a little bit, because both of you actually have customs that are on the official Tabletop Simulator mod that we use to play Disney Villainous.
Yeah, we don't talk about those.
No, I think we should talk about them. I want to ask, because I haven't personally gone through making a villain myself, just kind of both of your thoughts and feelings about, like, what's your folks' process of going through making the characters. And I actually specifically Failure Factory, I want to call out Bill Cipher, because I just recently watched Gravity Falls for the first time, and I have lots of questions. So I would just like, let's just start with the general, just like, what you folks did, like how you folks walked through it. I'll let you folks just go on your tangent right now, because I want to hear it. I want to hear how you folks like make these villains come to life.
All right. Okay. If we're going to talk about the customs, I'm afraid I can't start with Bill Cipher. He's actually the third one I tried.
Okay.
And part of the idea for Bill Cipher was to make him different from the other two that I made. So the Horn King was the first one that I started with, and he's more like a more complex version of Jafar in several regards. So something that you wouldn't see in an official game probably, because he just has so many moving parts that I felt worked for customs, and he was the first one, so he's a little could probably be more smooth. And I don't know, Ditto, maybe you have something that I don't know. How does one go at it?
It's tricky. like you said earlier, you kind of have to put yourself in the mind of these developers and like, okay, how can we make something that looks like it would be legit, but at the like carry the same feel of the game all at the same time, bringing something new to the table. I think that's my biggest problem with the ones I've done so far is that just they're really safe in how they're designed. They're all thematic for sure. I'm especially proud of how I managed to get around some of the stuff with Madame Mem. And her sort of, defeat Merlin, okay, let's turn this into a video game then. Why not? But it's a matter of taking the mechanics of the game and say, okay, what am I allowed to do? With Bill Cipher, it was hilarious because never in a million years would I have thought to turn the entire board around. But I love it.
I think that's ingenious. It is incredibly ingenious.
It's an example of one of those things where you're operating within the bounds of the game while at the same time completely, just, I don't know, even just kind of operating under the umbrella while still completely tearing it apart. And it's great.
I mean, it was easy, to feel comfortable with this for Bill Cipher, because this is his entire point. He's like this. Oh yeah, let's break it. Let's make it totally nuts. So I wouldn't have felt comfortable with doing something like turning the realm around with any other character. But I guess the one thing that you could say about how you do a custom is you look at the character and then you think, okay, how can I make what works best for this character? So for Bill, it has to be something really, really weird, really unique, or so he has turning the board. He has this anomaly deck, which is an additional stack of cards, and it was just he plays a random one. He turns his realm around. There actually have been other ideas for him. Instead of turning the realm, I was thinking about having it a two-sided realm where the other side is just weird. Or I had a version, or I played around in my head with a version where each location was another tile, and you could turn each tile individually. And just turning the realm as a whole around just felt like it would also translate nicely into an objective. You're like, you put everything on its head, and that's what stuck.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of effort actually to get the realm, the action icons in a layout where, at one time I playtested an earlier layout and I turned it around and I realized, oh no, the actions haven't changed because these two locations had heroes, and when you turn the realm around, they covered the same combination of actions over both locations. And I was like, I don't want that. I want it to be entirely different every time. And that took quite some time, actually. But was a fun challenge.
I gotta ask, so when you're testing, because I know I played both. I played Horn King, and I've also played Frollo and Oogie Boogie. In terms of your folks' customs, is how many players do you have test, or how do you go about your testing? Do you just play against somebody? Do you play against another custom, or do you play against an original villain? What is kind of your process of going through and just testing to make sure things work?
I feel you have to playtest. Oh, sorry, Ditto. Sorry, I don't want to be.
No biggie.
Please go for it.
For me, it's basically a 3-step process. I have sort of a solo rule set that I use to test them just on their own to make sure the mechanics flow smoothly and that it feels good to play. After that, I'll actually play around against myself, usually against one of the stock characters. Before it was Prince John, but I've actually started playing them against Hook a lot lately.
Huh.
And then after that, I go ahead and start bringing in public and say, okay, anybody want to help with this? And from there, it's history.
And that's when you're like, I have Oogie Boogie on deck. And I'm like...
Because by then, you've worked out some of the kinks.
Yeah. And then you actually need someone to be in the mindset of the actual player, piloting the villain,
right?
To see some things. And it's super cool. I remember too. One of the things that really got me about the customs was when I played Ditto's Frollo for the first time, and how I'm not necessarily a big Hunchback or Notre Dame fan, but I was impressed with kind of like how thematic it was. And how like it felt to like do things, and like sure there was a few like kinks in the road as we went, and we kind of discovered some stuff, but it was still fun to play. So I got to give you props for the fact that whatever initial testing that you did before you brought it to me, it was done very well. So I would take some of that advice if you folks want to make your own villains. Probably
absolutely. First step is test it against yourself and test it internally, because if you as the designer don't feel like you're having fun with this character, then almost no one else will either. So that first step is probably the most important.
Yeah, the character has to be fun to play at first. So you feel like the card deck and everything kind of makes sense to some degree. And I also agree on the point that you have to play it against original villains sooner or later. And what I did was to playtest it against a very usually slow villain like Scar, and to test it against one of the faster or easier villains too, and see whether is my character very much faster than this villain. Is he like, if my character, if Bill Cipher had been easily beaten by Scar, I would be worried that maybe he's a little bit slow. And if he had crushed let's say Dr. Facilier or Evil Queen immediately, then I also would be a little worried. And let's say I think the official ones give you a good point of reference, which if you play two broken customs against each other, you don't know which direction they're broken in, because they might just both be really, really slow or really, really fast. You might actually notice when they're both really slow, but
if a two-player game's taking more than 2 hours to complete, something's not right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a smidge.
But my suggestion, sorry.
No, go for it. No, it's your show.
My suggestion would just be like, when you try to have initial ideas, you probably go from theme. It doesn't even have to be a suggestion, because I feel most people would go that way. But check it out yourself to see whether it's fun.
I got you. So I guess my next question to both of you, really fast. So designing the villain deck itself. And I know this can go hand in hand with the question I'm about to ask, is that so a lot of villains, usually if you let's say you just remove the Fate deck from most of them, assuming they don't have to interact with the Fate deck at all, you could play a lot of solitaire against it. But once you add the Fate deck into play, it adds a whole other challenge to the character. How do you go about designing how hard hitting you want those Fate cards to be? Because I know when I was playing against some of the initial designs of Oogie Boogie that our friend Ditto put together, let me tell you, there was some bad boys in there.
The original Fate deck was kind of brutal.
It wasn't like it was really brutal. It wasn't like unbearable brutal, but it was like, oh no, this is rough.
Don't worry, I have since fixed that.
I know. Thank God.
Very excited to try it out, by the way.
Yeah. But talk a little bit about designing the challenge of the Fate deck. I would like to know how you folks kind of go through that.
The Fate deck is always the hardest part, because like you said, you never really know how strong or weak you want to make this. And that goes into where the solo play is actually really important too, because at least with the solo rules that I use, basically I Fate myself every other turn, because that's about what you'd expect in a two-player match.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing that and I keep constantly getting overrun by something, or the effects are just too much, it's like, okay, maybe it's not a good idea to have move a hero to any location 3 times.
That's a little rough.
Yeah. But it's just kind of an organic thing where over time, you start learning what sticks and what needs to be improved on. The characters, for the most part, like with Frollo. I'm sorry I keep jumping around, but
no, it's okay.
His were really easy because his were natural. So it's like Esmeralda's going to be part of the Fate deck, and her thing is going to be setting her people free. With Quasimodo, it's going to be the back and forth sort of whose loyalty is he going to fall under now sort of thing. Where it gets really fun is when you decide to have the decks cross over like I did with Captain Phoebus, and him just kind of betraying you if Esmeralda catches him. So it's just a thing where it's just organic, just over time. Like, okay, this hero should do this thing. And if it just so happens that coincides with completely ruining your plans, then so be it.
Yeah, you need to design, 5 copies of Ariel in every deck. That's what you gotta do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, make it so you can't do anything for the rest of the game. And then it's gonna be fun for everyone. Well, what about you, Failure Factory? What do you go about with your Fate decks?
Right. I feel that when I did the initial versions of the Horned King and Madame Medusa, I felt, they're fine. And then I played against somebody else, and they just fated me and covered in really relevant spots of the realm. And I realized, oh shit, I can't do anything anymore because they covered these spots and they covered them with 2 heroes, so I can't do that and can't do that. So I feel that even though you can get a really good feeling for the Fate deck with solo plays, sometimes you realize that if somebody, like, there are some villains where if they fate you very, very, like, for a short time, fate you intensely, they just fall so far back, or it could be for a custom, you could design one where if you get fated every other turn, you feel okay, but if they fate you twice in a row, you suddenly have a big drop in speed or something. And I feel you notice these things more likely when you play against another player, because they might see things that you don't see in your own design, simply because they have another perspective. And of course, there are also villains who just have the Fate deck be a very integral part of the gameplay. Like Madame Medusa, for instance, she has the Rescuers, Burnout and Bianca, and basically they stay out, and every Fate action can ruin her plans. Or I'm currently working with David, the artist who did the art for my customs, on Miss Finster from Recess. Huh. And the kids, the thing is, she has to catch 3 troublemakers, and it's a little bit like a miniature Clue, where she has to find out hidden information. But the point is that the information is hidden from the Miss Finster player. Only the other players know it. I can't play it without somebody else to know that information.
See, I love this.
That's interesting. I like
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different twist on Yzma, where it's like the other players already know some information, but you as the player have to kind of figure out how to work around that information that's out there. That's really clever. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, actually, if you mention is Yzma, you can't really play as Yzma against yourself, because you have to have somebody else who looks at your Fate deck and picks a card. And if Yzma sees that Fate deck because she's playing against herself, guess which card she will, which deck she will choose for after them, or something like that.
Right.
So it's actually an official card where I imagine this will be the same problem, like hidden information.
So something I've kind of noticed, with the new set, compared to some of the older sets, one of the things I've noticed as the designers have developed all these new villains is that if you compare it to the original set and going forward, there isn't a whole lot of characters that have a lot of ways to directly interact with heroes besides using allies. Now some characters like Prince John will have beautiful, lovely taxes where they gain a benefit for having heroes out on the board, but there's no actual general way to interact with the heroes. I've noticed, like, as they've gone about the different sets, they've kind of realized that we want to give you more options to kind of work around these heroes besides just trying to play some allies to a location to vanquish them. One of the reasons why I really like playing Corella right now in the new expansion is because she actually has a lot of different options to work around that stuff. She has 2 particular cards built to deal with the fact that 2 of her locations basically have the actions that she needs to kind of really get her engine going. And if they're covered, that does you more harm than not be able to capture a puppy at a location. So having cards that allow you to kind of work around that are really good. Do you find yourself, like, after you kind of initially design like a villain's deck and then make their fate deck and kind of like put that to start having those interact with each other more, do you find yourself going back and like adding cards that allow you to interact with the heroes more?
Absolutely. I had, okay.
Oh, sorry. I normally don't, but that's because the characters that I picked so far, and I'm like up to 6 or 7 now, by the way, have all been characters that are going to interact really well with their heroes anyway. So like Frollo, you're looking through your fate deck trying to find all the gypsies to capture, to find Esmeralda, yada, 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 what have you. Oogie Boogie, same deal. Got to find Santa. Just kind of digging your way down to find it. And I've actually got a cool mechanic for him that you haven't seen yet.
Ooh, okay.
I think you'll get a kick out of. But like, it's the same with Madame Mim, hunting down all the different forms of Merlin that you can find. And the most recent one that I'm the most proud of is actually King Candy.
Yeah, I'm curious about how. So you said that King Candy's whole gimmick is that he's just trying to win different races. Is that what his thing is?
He is. His entire thing is just winning races, but you have to make sure that Vanellope's not getting involved too much because, kind of like in the movie, she has a chance of resetting the game, so to speak. So you really don't want that to happen.
Ooh, okay.
If you can help it.
Wow.
So it's just one of those things where he's got to have ways to deal with these heroes, and you'll like what you see when you see it.
Okay, I'm very curious to see this when it happens. What about yourself, Fairy Factory?
Yeah, so I actually had that happened to me. I didn't have it for the Horn King, who has a lot of allies, his henchmen, and I didn't have it for Bill, who basically has a deal which works exactly like Jafar. So both of them had a stable set of cards that I knew from official cards would work to deal with heroes. But I had it for Madame Medusa, who, because you mentioned Cruella, has a lot of the similar, like she's a knockoff of Cruella in many ways, and one of that is that she doesn't have many allies.
Yeah.
So she's got the 2 crocodiles and Snoops, her partner, which is not nearly enough to deal with heroes only by allies. So I really had to go back and forth between the Fate deck and her Villain deck to make sure that she can defeat heroes, but not too easily. And that was a big challenge because I couldn't rely too much on pre-existing mechanics. Like we have very few villains in the game who have so few allies. We have Cruella now, but I didn't know Cruella at that time. And we have Evil Queen, who uses poison, which is a mechanic very similar to Jafar's Hypnotize, except that you pay the power in advance. And it was really challenging to find something for Medusa to work. So she has an item that she can use to blast heroes, and she can... coincidentally, she actually got 2 card names that appear in the Cruella deck, Reckless Driving and Telephone.
I thought of that when I initially played against the Medusa, and then I played Cruella. I was like, huh, that's funny. And like the card is almost somewhat identical in the way it somewhat works. But it's funny. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's totally coincidental.
Yeah,
incidental, but I mean, yeah, the characters are similar, so it kind of makes sense. It's just it's a funny coincidence. Yeah, but I feel that Cruella run into similar issues, or the designers ran into similar issues, and I'm very curious to see how they resolved it and how Cruella is working around it.
I definitely
Medusa
think...
actually.
No, go finish your thought. Finish your thought.
Yeah, Medusa actually has also one way to go around the fact that she might have heroes in her realm, which is she has in the new version she has a card that just lets her use one player card action to play 2 cards at once. So she, a bit like Evil Queen, except that she can't perform another action. She just splits a player card action into 2. Yeah, which is also like with Evil Queen, who has this shortage of allies. You have to add cards that give you some way of working around it. And the lucky situation we have as custom designers is we have so many official cards to draw inspiration from, and to compare our villains to. Right. That's
I was one of the things I like looking at this new expansion compared to some of the old stuff, and we not to try to bring up the Ursula talk again, but Ursula is kind of a good example of maybe what not to do. And one of the things when we were talking about it in the conversation was it's called options, and giving your player options to go work around these different hindrances is what is able to make the game not feel like a giant Fate War slog, where you feel like if you're getting fated constantly or like fated like every other turn, you obviously have an obstacle to deal with. And I feel like we as players have realized what makes things fun. And it's nice to see that you folks are like taking that into consideration and making sure that players have options, because I always want a player when they pick up this game to not feel like they're stuck. Because I think when you introduce this game to anyone for the first time, when they're trying to learn everything as they go, it's really hard not to not play the game correctly against them, where you're like, all right, I want to fate you to try to slow you down, but then the player doesn't understand what type of options they have because they're learning the game for the first time, or whatnot, or learning the character for the first time. But it's nice to know that we're picking these concepts up as we're playing these new characters, as well as we're taking those concepts into the custom characters you folks are making, which is super awesome. Which I think is great.
Definitely feel there's been some evolution in the game over the time. One other thing that I realized is that in the original game, Jafar and Ursula have activate spaces, but they only have 4 cards each that they can activate. And villains after that have, I think, at least 6. I don't know for certain about Cruella, but I know that Ratigan and Evil Queen both have 6 cards that they can activate. I think Frollo has only 1, right?
No,
He has
Corella's
the bells of Notre Dame.
her 2 allies. She's got her phone, and she's got 2 flashlights, and there might be 1 more. I could be wrong, but there's at least 5. So that's still a large amount. Yeah. And she relies heavily off of that. But the thing with that, too, going back to my topic about options, is that one of her cards is literally use the activate action. So she's at a play a card location. Right. She can play that. And even in that location, her action icon's covered. She can still activate to try to go towards her goal. Which, again, like I said, talks about options. And that's like one of the things I'm really digging from these new characters, is that they're giving them lots of options to kind of get around stuff, so that way you don't feel like you're stuck. As much as I hate Feeding Frenzy with Scar and how worthless I find it sometimes, there is that one occasion where putting all your hyenas at one spot really helps. Definitely helps a lot. So, all right. My next question to you all is, this might be more for Failure Factory than Ditto, because I know I've worked with Ditto a lot on some of his customs, because I know some of those are some of his favorite characters. But why did you choose the characters that you wanted to make? That's what I want to know.
Well, yeah, good question. Partially because I like For the Horn King and Bull Cipher. It was just I liked them a lot, and it was also the consideration whether I expected these villains to come up in the actual official game.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to do a villain that I felt would be out next month. That just would feel a little bit like I had spent too much time on something pointless.
I gotcha.
At the point where I started doing the Horn King, I had heard rumors about, the game's probably not doing that great. They're probably going to do one more expansion. And I was like, okay, who's going to be in that expansion? It's obviously going to be Cruella, maybe Gaston, maybe somebody else. I don't know. Lady Tremaine, maybe, perhaps. And then I felt, okay, Horn King's not gonna be in. Now it seems like the game is actually doing awesomely, which is great.
Thank God.
So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing the Horn King as an official villain, and I'll be happy to say that that it's redundant, but because I'm really curious to see him as an official game, and I'm really excited about a little Horned King mover.
Oh yeah,
and stuff like that. And but that was actually a big part of why I chose these three.
I got you.
Like Bill Cipher is from a TV show. Madame Medusa is from a movie that's, let's say, not one of the. I think it was actually a decent box office success, but it's not one of the best remembered Disney movies. Also, Medusa has some issues as a character, I feel, that make her a little less agreeable maybe than others, which is probably a problem that Frollo also has for official characters.
Yeah.
So I feel that's actually a very good place to be with customs, things that we might not see in the official game as customs, which is also a strong point of villains like Doofenshmirtz and so on, because you don't expect Doofenshmirtz to be in the official game, and it's just funny to see him nonetheless.
I know. It's really cool because I know one of our Discord members, Secret Lawyer Man, is a huge Doofenshmirtz fan. I know that's what really got him back into playing a lot of Villainous. Is just playing that custom, which is really nice to know that the customs that you folks are working on actually influence people's love for this game, which is super awesome. Like, you have no idea how, like, I did not do that, but it's nice to know that people like you folks are actually out there really generating some awesome hype with our community and just, like, engagement and positivity, and it's really nice to see that. So I really thank you folks for doing that.
A great game and a great community.
It is. Both of those things.
Just a natural part of the game. Everybody wants to see their stuff in, and everybody wants to see everybody happy. So.
Exactly. So Ditto, I don't think I've ever actually asked you this. Is Frollo like the one you want the most?
Yeah, for sure.
Is it just because Hunchback is like one of your favorite movies? Or is it more just like the character?
I like the character a lot.
Okay.
For one. But I think it's an interesting situation because Frollo is a character that I think definitely deserves to be in the game. And is definitely one of the best villains Disney has ever designed.
I agree on this one.
But at the same time, it's very unlikely that they actually do because people are too easily offended these days.
That is also a sad
They can't take the heat. So while I would love to see him officially in the game, I don't think that it will happen.
Or at least not the way you want it to.
Not the way you want it to, anyway, easily.
Yeah.
So I took it upon myself to say, okay, let's see what happens.
Let's do this. And it actually came out fairly well. I don't know if you modified it since last time I played with it, but...
I have a little bit just to make the Fate deck not as brutal.
I gotcha. Man, what is it with these brutal Fate decks, man? You want people not to have fun? We all just want to make Ariel. That's all we want to do.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's like all right, Ariel's our benchmark right here. Let's all just try to build that character in each one of the decks. Make it a miserable time.
It was about that bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's the same with a lot of the characters I picked, because like Oogie is one that actually does stand a good chance of making it in the game now. So I'm actually looking to I'm actually looking to replace him in the
oh wow
mod thing because I expect him to come out in the main game. So
okay, well,
I've been testing out to see who I can
be awesome.
Plug that hole with.
I bet you King Candy. I would think King
I'm
Candy.
thinking King Candy
put there.
I just finished probably the version of him tonight or last night that I would want to upload, and he's a good time.
Okay, I'm looking forward to trying out the King Candy himself. As I am not a huge King Candy fan, I would at least like to play. Because one of the best part about this game is the fact that I really just like playing with all these different characters, even if I'm not huge fans of them, because I just like design. That's really what I dig about this game mostly, is the fact that even characters I'm not super huge fans of, I just dig their design.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you'll probably especially get a kick out of King Candy because the gimmick I ended up going with for him is like right up your alley.
Oh really? Oh baby.
He's a very flow combo heavy.
Oh yes.
kind of character. So.
Oh yes.
I think you'll enjoy him a great deal.
Now, with you saying that, I'm curious. Did you take any inspiration from like, all right, because I know you were a big Hades fan, where you're like, I want to make Hades, but make Hades more fun to play.
Believe it or not, no.
Really?
If anyone, I would almost compare his play style a little more to like Facilier.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
In terms of general flow, but when you see what his entire shtick is with the combos, you'll know. He's definitely his own beast this time.
I mean, that's the whole reason why I like Hades so much, is the fact that I personally feel, and this is just my opinion, that Hades is probably the most combo-heavy character in the game, where he really just kind of relies off, like, going to a location, moving a Titan, playing a Titan, or finding some way to progress the Titans in some shape or form, and you can just do that, like, back to back pretty good if you have the engine set up to do it. Because that's all he is that you have to make him move fast enough by doing all those combos to get the engine going. But if you can't get the engine going, then it's a slog. So I'm curious if you made it more fun and enjoyable of experience.
Oh, absolutely. The way I've designed Candy, almost everything combos into almost everything.
Ooh.
So you should never really be lacking in options. If anything, you might just be lacking in the actual races that you have to win.
Okay.
And even that, like, it shouldn't take long.
Okay.
It shouldn't be long.
Interesting. Okay. I'm excited to play all these custom characters. You folks have no idea. I actually have not had a chance to touch Bill Cipher. I've only looked at what some of the cards that are in Bill Cipher's.
Oh, you're in for a riot with him too.
I am so excited to actually kind of mess around with him and just kind of see how he plays. Because I didn't know about the flip the realm thing. I thought that was really clever. But I'm really looking forward to testing it out.
Yeah, try it out.
Yeah, so is like a Gravity Falls like a favorite TV show of yours, I assume?
Let's say I feel that Gravity Falls is a show that kept a very high quality over its entire run. And Bill Cipher is easily one of the most charismatic and fun evil characters from any Disney TV show that I can think of. And also his gimmick of being a reality warper just made him made for a very interesting and quirky board. But yeah, the Gravity Falls is an awesome show, and I recommend it to everybody.
No, my girlfriend is absolutely obsessed with the show. So when she saw that someone made a custom Bill Cipher, she's like, I definitely want to try that out at some point. So I think her and I are probably going to do that at some point, maybe this week when we get some downtime to play some more Villainous. So my last question to you two. So this is kind of like a what if scenario, and I want to actually talk it out with you folks, and I'll join in the conversation. Let's say Ravensburger of Prospero Hall approached you two, possibly myself, to be like, all right, we know Gaston's coming to the game, but we haven't touched him at all. None of his artwork's done. You know, we know he's large as a barge, but, you know, that's all we know about Gaston. What would you do to make Gaston fun to play with?
Oh, boy.
Now, we don't need to go in super big detail. I know we don't have, like, hours on end for the show. But I kind of want to throw this question out there for you folks now, since you've, like, sat down and, like, developed out some villains, as well as like now that we kind of got some more like unique gimmicky things with the new set that came out that I think is kind of nice to know that is like that's what we can break within the spectrum. Kind of like, how would you folks like approach Gaston? And I can throw my 2 cents in here and there too.
Okay. I've actually got some ideas, honestly.
Go for it.
We discussed it before, and I feel for Gaston, like I don't even know whether the objective needed to be something really fancy for him. I feel it could be unlock the castle with the mirror, defeat the beast, maybe. But what I could imagine for Gaston, because one of his big shticks is that he's so self-absorbed and he's really popular and everybody loves him, is that he could have a mechanic where he gets things for free or for cheaper because he's popular. Like he could have a popularity counter, and then he could pay cards without actually paying costs because he just gets liked, and then the food would help him get the villagers behind him, and then Bell would damage his
His ego.
Sorry, a foreign language for me. Yes, his ego, and maybe that the perception of the villagers of Gaston would go a little bit down, and then he'd have to make sure that everybody regards him as the great guy he is again, so he can get the villagers to storm the beast's castle or something. I feel that could be something quirky where you can have cards that are just about his ego, where it's like nobody does X like Gaston and stuff like that. And conditions like manly or whatever, I don't know.
That's funny.
But yeah, that's the best I can think of right now.
That's interesting. I never thought that.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I like that. My immediate thing goes to kind of his goal throughout most of the movie does not involve the beast much at all. It really more centers around Belle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing would be actually kind of put Belle on the board like a Rapunzel tile almost, and say that your objective would be to have a certain amount of power tokens, whatever you want to call it, on Belle at the end of your turn to finally convince her to marry you. Effectively. And you can actually start pulling some tricks with your popularity idea in the middle of that too, where certain card, like the cost for certain cards could go down based on how much you've convinced Belle as well, and maybe have her up in the castle to start with. It could be a good time.
Interesting. I've always kind of thought very straightforward with Gaston, where his gimmick was he has to unlock Beast Castle, and then Beast is there, and then you have to vanquish Beast at Beast Castle. Now,
yeah. And you'd think that, but
yeah,
and this is something I've realized, especially like the more of these that I've done, is that the straightforward, defeat X hero things more often than not have something else driving them, and that something else is what's so much more interesting.
Yes.
Look at Frollo. It's sure go find Esmeralda and do whatever, but the underlying part of the hunting the gypsies down is what drives him as a character.
Yeah.
With Yzma for an official card,
exactly.
Who has also to defeat Cusco with Kron, but
it's
a defeat.
Well, along those lines, the best example of it is actually, hilariously enough, Ursula.
Yeah, that's the funny part.
You'll notice that her entire shtick is about stealing the crown and the trident instead of defeat Ariel.
And through it, she's defeating King Triton.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've got this deal where it's not specifically the straightforward, defeat X hero, but in a roundabout way, that's just how it ends up happening, and it's a more interesting way because of that.
Yeah. I thought this through, especially since we've gotten the new expansion with the Rapunzel tile thing, where I'm like, oh, they could just do that again with the Beast, but then I'm like, well, that's just like a cop-out. You know?
Yeah.
That just it doesn't seem correct. I do really like the ego concept where like maybe like what his whole gimmick is that he has like really high costing cards. So what you have to do in order to play some of the cards he needs in order to win, you have to like build up this ability where like you can play cards for like super dirt cheap to the point where you're not spending any of your power, and then like you can use that power to like play whatever cards that you need, whether it's like you're trying to defeat the beast or trying to get Belle on your side or something like that. I think that'd be a really interesting take on the character, because you're absolutely right where the movie, he's really like, he doesn't really go after the beast until the end, you know? So there's no reason for his goal to really be surrounded by trying to defeat the beast. But maybe that's like maybe how he gets to his victory to condition faster is like if he defeats the beast and it's like a really strong hero, then maybe he gets the bonus. But you know, that's
one thing about the Mary Bell objective. I like it a lot, but I feel that if we're going to see Lady Tremaine, I feel that she would also be a very strong contender for this kind of mechanic, where she has Cinderella and she can lock her up in her room and maybe needs to, I don't know, start her turn with the glass slipper and the prince and one of her daughters at the same location or something like that. So this mechanic of marrying off a hero to a character with a hero who's always on board feels like it works so well with Tremaine. Actually, before Gothel was announced, I was playing around with something not as good, not because I didn't have the idea of having this tile instead of a card and anything, but it felt like having a hero out, having Cinderella start out and stay out all game would fit very, very well for her. And if we assume we're not going to have like 20 more expansions, I feel we, again, with the topic of making the villains a little more diverse, they might, I'm not saying it's bad for Gaston, I just feel that they might want to spread this out a little more. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think. No, go for it.
It works well for Gaston, but
you might actually be able to split the difference and just do a reduced version of both of them as the overall objective.
What do you mean?
Sure. Yeah.
It's like have the condition about Belle being, married, on your side, convinced, whatever, what have you, but also have a go kill the beast objective in there as well to represent how much his character's direction changes through the course of the movie.
I totally feel you that Gaston is not about defeating the beast. He's just defeating the beast, or trying to defeat the beast out of spite in the end, because he feels he feels insulted when Belle refuses to marry him, and this is actually what all of this is about. He's not about the beast. He doesn't really care about the beast. He just cares about Belle caring about the beast more than about him. Because he's awesome, and she is the most beautiful woman in town, so obviously she should be his. And he doesn't even care about Belle, actually. He just cares about people thinking that Belle is beautiful, so obviously she should be with him. And when she doesn't want that, he doesn't even care about Belle, actually, in a way.
I'm really interested to see how this all turns out.
That's true. Because I think they would do well by focusing Gaston less, maybe even less on Belle and more on his nature as a hunter. And maybe take that spin on it, where he's looking at Belle as just his next trophy.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
And go the direction that way, because that's something I don't know that they'd necessarily try with any other character, and it would definitely distinguish him from someone like Tremaine, like you said. I think that could be a fun direction to take too.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think with the new characters. Is there any characters that have like two goals, like Jafar or the Doctor, or basically like there's two different whole objectives within their goal, but I don't really think there's really anybody else.
I mean, Pete technically has 4 at a time.
True.
So.
Because I think you can play it off in both ways with like Gaston, where I think there's something where like maybe you defeat, I don't know, like you don't have to do both at the same time, but I feel like it would almost be like you would have to do something with Belle and then you go defeat the Beast, and then that's how you went with Gaston. It's not like the typical, because I think the issue with Gaston in my brain is that on paper, he's essentially set up exactly like Hook. Almost easier, though. Because he's just finding an item to go find the Beast and kill him. But that's essentially no different than Hook. You would have to find a different way to make that interesting. And I don't think just finding the magic mirror would be the gimmick with him. I think there's got to be something more. And obviously you folks are hitting the right notes on that. To say the least.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think that it was onto something with the bell, with the trophy thing. I like that.
Yeah, I like
what I could have imagined is that like villages could maybe Faisal from Discord has made this Shanyu version custom where you will have the Huns start out at the Great Wall and they have to move to the palace. Also, something like that could probably work for Gaston, where the villagers start at the village and he has to convince them to move there. But I don't know. I feel the trophy thing is more interesting. We will see.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess that's my final question with Gaston is do you think it'll be, the objective will be, like, in terms of how it's worded, it'll just be defeat the Beast, or do you think there will be something different on that objective?
No, there's going to be something else on top.
Okay.
There's going to be something to do with Belle as the actual objective, and then defeating the Beast is just going to be kind of the underlying, almost subtext.
Okay.
Sort of objective to it.
I can imagine it's just going to be defeat the Beast. And Belle is just going to be an integral hero that will keep him from his objective. For instance, to unlock the castle or to get enough power to defeat the Beast, Belle will, even if the objective was just defeat the Beast, which could not be, I don't know. I feel that Belle would be an integral part in that. I'm not sure they're actually gonna have to spell it out, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I can see that going multitudes of different ways. But thanks for the input. Actually, you thought of some stuff that I wasn't even thinking of with Gaston. So, thank you for opening my eyes. I appreciate it.
That's the magic.
I know. It's like it's Disney or something.
Right.
And it's Disney magic. But I think we're gonna go ahead and try to wrap up the show here, friends. Thank you both for joining me. Thank you, Failure Factory, for joining us. I appreciate you coming on, and I know it's a very different time for you over yonder. So
that's fine.
I appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us. But until then, thank you all so much for listening. Thanks, Ditto. Thanks, Failure Factory, for joining us as usual. Thanks for opening up your thoughts and stuff. Actually, one more thing, Failure Factory.
Yes.
Do you want to plug the generator, or do you want to give me the link so I can put it in the comments of this video?
Yeah, I can.
No, let's do that. Folks, when you look at this video for the podcast, check out the comments. We will put up the link to the generator down there. So if you folks want to take a crack at making your own custom villain, what is it? You can have at it. I believe there is what is it? Is it a PDF, or is there something else that actually tells you how it all works? I forget.
There's a PDF with a README, and a lot of people who try out the generator at first think it's like an UI that will run you through it, like create a new villain, upload image here. This is not how it works. Read the README file, and also if you still don't get it, feel free to join the Discord and ask me directly.
Yes, because that's what I did when I looked at it for the first time, because I was like, what in the hell is going on here? And then you were like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to work, and I'm like, oh, because even I was one of those knuckleheads.
It's definitely a tool to speed up the process more than it is a tool for creating something from scratch. It's more you create something, you have some overhead there, and then whenever you make a change, it goes relatively fast, or really a lot faster than you would expect from individual image files or something.
Yeah.
So it's really a tool for fast iterations more than image creation program.
I gotcha. Well, thank you again. We'll make sure we go put that in the comments of the video, everybody, so that way you folks can check it out. But we'll go ahead and wrap up the show there. So thanks again for joining me, friends. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, stay wicked, and we'll see you folks on the next show.